Hey, this is CrowBirdArt. You're watching Creators That Inspire Us. My name is Victoria Vandenhoff, and I am an artist living in Toronto. I do layout and design work for animation and indie games. So I work on the backgrounds and the concept artwork for numerous kinds of creative endeavors, such as indie games and kinds of animation. I also do prop work and environment designs as well. I have only started doing landscape and prop art design relatively recently. I've really gotten into it, and I love the way that you can tell a story in a single image just from environments alone. I have done art since before I can remember, and I always knew I wanted to be an artist. You can look back through old albums and see that I've always written down, what do you want to be as you grow up? I've always written down artist, and that has never changed. If you ask my mother, she'd tell you that I only started doing art seriously when I was 9, you know, back in those weeb days, loving anime and all that stuff. But I've always known that I wanted to be an artist. That's always been my profession. It has never changed since the day I picked up a pencil. I've always wanted to be able to create something that fits seamlessly within a desired world. So it started with me creating characters that would fit within worlds that I really loved growing up, so like various kinds of anime or popular culture, and it grew into a desire to learn to create those things myself and create those worlds so that other people can be drawn in the same way that I was drawn in before. The art that I create now is definitely inspired by a lot more high contrast and gloomy or moody kinds of images, and of course miscellaneous material from the world around me. But I specifically my eyes are drawn towards high contrast, so really bright shadows, really dark darks, and I find that some of my work really shows how much that interests me and how it influences me. When you can look at an image and really understand the world that you're looking at and to be inspired by something that you look at. Right now, I am working on tailoring a background design portfolio for various animation projects, and in the meantime, I'm just working on my own stuff freelance. Like most artists, I strive to become self-sufficient with my art and my art only. Many freelance artists nowadays are working part-time gigs in order to get by until their desired profession can make enough money for them to survive. It has always been my dream to survive through my art, and not just survive, to thrive through my art and my art alone. I really like to be a part of a team, to be able to bounce my work off of various other team members and get those creative juices flowing in a company kind of setting. I really would like to be a part of a team or a company to work on art full-time and not have to do the part-time job that many freelance artists do for a good portion of time. Definitely one of the most incredible artists that I've loved since early on has been a scratchboard artist by the name of Nicolas Delors. He is an illustrator living in Paris at the moment. He works almost exclusively in scratchboard and clayboard, only black and white lines, and he is able to weave the most ethereal illustrations with just 2 colors. And every single one of his works are incredible. His line work, his fluidity, and the way that he can make a story with so much atmosphere using only black and white lines. His work is just incredible. I can't believe it. Some challenges that I've faced in the past have been definitely on the client side of things. There has always been an element of client and contract work that is done with being freelance, and the biggest struggle will always be finding the right words to say, or just finding a client that isn't going to lowball you, or even worse, cancel at the end when you've given them all of your work. Contract work is really, really important, and making your boundaries clear is probably the most difficult thing a freelance artist can do. To any new artists out there, one thing that I can tell you with absolute certainty is stick to your guns when giving a contract. Don't let anybody push you around, especially since you are the boss of this scenario. Whenever you are given a client, or if ever you are being offered a job, make sure that your rules and regulations are put into place in your contract before you go any further. Everything needs to be in writing. They need to be in writing, and nothing should change you from that fact. They shouldn't try and convince you otherwise. If they do, run. Part of being a creator is sticking to your guns and learning those really shitty things that happen to all freelancers, but you shouldn't have to do that. There are so many resources out there from fellow artists that have learned the bad way for you, that will give you the advice that you need to go through in your artistic journey easier than they did. Every artist out there is going to want to help you, and that is the best resource that you can have. The tips that I have for you is find somebody that is doing the job that you want to have. Contact them. They may not contact you back, but on the off chance you have a connection with this person, then you can learn so much, even if you share just one conversation with them. All artists out there are trying to help you. They're not your competition. They're your friends, they're your coworkers. I feel my strengths might be my ability to network. It's a skill that I have acquired and worked on for a couple years now, and I'm definitely a lot more comfortable and confident with it nowadays. I'm also pretty confident of my line work and my ability to be a good draftsman in many of my different kinds of artistic and creative endeavors. I am definitely not as confident in my color work as I would like to be, but like many artists, once you find something that you're not strong in, you strive to become better at it. If not to be a jack of all trades, but just to have the groundwork for every kind of art there is. Like many artists, you find your inspiration from all over the place. Even though I have never ever considered stepping a toe into the comics world, I can't lie and say that it has never interested me before. The line work that you see in a lot of comics is something that I've introduced into many of my illustrations and my concept design work in the past, and probably will in the future. And it's something that I'd like to step a toe into maybe sometime down the road, but as for right now, sequential art terrifies me. My favorite movie is, at the moment, Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. It is a movie from 1987, I believe, 85 or 87. Maybe it's 86, somewhere in that range. And one of the reasons I love it so much is you can have a single scene from that movie and you can make an entire spin-off movie from a single scene. The creature design, the character design, the environment design, every single inch of the sets on that movie are an entire story in and of themselves. And the fact that they are all bound together in one single narrative shows you how much thought the creators put into that world, that it exists so solidly in the imaginations of whoever watches it. My favorite art piece changes over the years. I'm, like many artists, really picky about my work. I have a favorite background piece that I've loved to do. I've had favorite character and prop designs that I've loved to do, but the first one that comes to my head when I think of my favorite piece I've ever done so far would be the piece I did of the Vietnamese temple in Vietnam. Last year I had the privilege of visiting Vietnam for a month and traveling with a really great photographer who took some amazing reference photos that I knew I had to replicate. So the piece that I've done of the Vietnamese temple is heavily based off of one of those photos. While creating that piece, I did things with color that I didn't think were possible, and I can only hope that I captured the beauty of Vietnam the way that I saw it through my eyes. My greatest strength would definitely be my draftsmanship and my sense of light. So even in my color pieces, you'll see that I like to use really high contrasted lights and shadows, and that's because that's what my eye is naturally drawn to. Even in some of my color pieces, you can see more yellows and purples as contrasting colors because they have the highest amount of value contrast versus other colors, at least in my opinion. My greatest strength comes from the ability to translate the visuals of something that I see into something that works within real space, and then adding lighting that makes it more moody and more theatric. I'm always seeking to improve the sections of art that I find myself lacking in. So for example, color. I currently want to get a lot better at observing color and different kinds of light sources and how they affect an illustration, because I'm definitely not as confident in color as I am in black and white. I'm still learning, like many artists out there, but because I spent so long in a black and white world, color is my greatest weakness. I am still struggling to understand bits and pieces of it, but the more I work, the more I'm becoming familiar with it. I also find that one of my good points is whenever I find my greatest weakness in art, it tends to be one of the things I start to work on more. Not quite like a jack of all trades, but I like to at least have the groundwork for everything I work in. But I also want to be more confident into applying to industries that I'm not qualified for, because you'll never get the chance to be anywhere or to do anything if you don't try in the first place. And out there, especially in the creative arts community and industry, you'll find so many job postings that are for things that you can't possibly have all of the qualifications for. So the best thing that you can do is apply to them all. For a really long time, I worked primarily in scratchboard, so only in black and white lines, similar to Nicolas Delors. But nowadays I've been using a lot more digital media, so taking a step back from the traditional media and going more into digital, which is a lot more freeing and useful, especially in the industry. Most of my works nowadays are done entirely in Procreate on the iPad with an Apple Pencil, and the versatility of it means that I can take it wherever I go. I am privileged to be a part of a generation that grew up with traditional and digital media existing hand in hand. There is something to be said about working primarily with traditional media. The traditional artists that I know are always phenomenal. It is so difficult to fix mistakes, and it is so much more forgiving in digital to work with just traditional media. Whenever I work too much in digital media, I tend to work more in traditional media just so that I have an equal footing. But there is something to be said about the forgiveness that you can have with the digital media. You can just do so much more with it, and you can create so much more quicker. Especially when it comes to my color pieces, I don't think I could successfully create a color piece with anywhere near the success that I could traditionally as I can with digital media. My art is unique to me in a way that I still haven't quite discovered. I've asked so many different professional artists, hobbyist artists, amateur artists to ask themselves what they think is their strong point. And I've always struggled to ask that question for myself. There have been times where I've said I have been really good at character design, only to realize that I just hadn't leveled up yet. I haven't gotten to the point where I was truly happy with it. At this point in time, in this exact moment, I would say that my strength would be in my line work, and that you can see character in my lines. That makes my art unique in a way that other artists can't. And that's not to say that other artists do it worse than I do. We're all doing things completely different. We all view the world in a different way. The way we all observe the world is translated in our art, and the way that I translate my world is through these lines. I am especially proud of the relationship that I have with my mentor and with my growing networking skills. I have learned so much from him, and just the way that I can have somebody to bounce my ideas off of, to bounce my work off of. His work is like mine that I dreamed about. Like if you were to look back and talk to 9-year-old Vicky and say, what do you want your work to be like when you grow up? If I had known about my mentor's work at that point, I would have pointed right at it and said, that right there, that's what my work will look like. And the more I learn from him, the more I find my own style, and the more I find my own way in the art world. That's different from everybody, but it's, at the same time, it's the same. All artists that go into the industry learn certain lessons at certain points. Whether it's how to network, whether it's how to ask for advice, how to get more jobs from one contract job to another, the things that people are looking for in the industry versus the things that people are not looking for in the industry. When I see his work, I see the artist that I could be and the artist that I am slowly but surely becoming. One thing that I have under my belt is I definitely work a lot quicker than a lot of other artists I know. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I can't quite tell yet. All I know is that I can crank out a lot of art in a short period of time. And I'm confident in my own work, and I know when something's done and I know when something's good. Sometimes I need to back up a little bit and take a break and give my eyes sometimes to adjust on a piece that I've just completed, but there's always going to be something nitpicky that you can change about a completed piece of artwork. Being an artist in day-to-day life can be difficult, but one thing I can tell you with absolute certainty is every artist is their worst critic, and at some point you have to decide when something is done. Having a great network of people around you that can help you tailor your portfolio or help you figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are is a great asset. But doing that indefinitely is not good for anybody in the long run. What you need to do is at some point realize that your work is fine, it's worth it, it's done. You choose when your work is complete, and you will always be learning, and you will always be contacting other creatives on your work. But at some point you have to draw the line and say it's good enough. For all the artists out there that are working on your portfolio, you're constantly going to be learning new things, and you're going to be working on one thing and perfecting another thing, and you're going to notice certain things about your art change. And because of that, you may feel that your portfolio is never done. It's never going to be completed, because the works that you were so proud of 3 months ago are now the worst pieces in your portfolio. At some point, you have to decide, my work is good enough, it's time to get out there. And once you're confident enough in yourself to start applying to these places, your dream jobs, then you know you're ready. But you're never gonna have somebody who's critiquing your work be 100% fine with it. You're gonna need to be the final say in all of your work. If you had asked me 6 months ago, like, what does your background stuff look like? I would have been like, it's not that good, but it's fine. And now I consider it like one of my strongest pieces, even more so than any of the characters that I've created. And it's why I've taken a dive into like more environment design and prop design, because once you have an understanding of things like perspective and like composition, then you don't have to worry about things like, oh, does my character look nice from this angle? Does my character look nice from this angle? You can just create the space and create a character from an entire room. So from this space that you're looking at right now, you can get some inspiration as to what I'm like as a person. And that's what a good environment and interior designer does. I haven't always been into sequential and landscape art. In fact, if you had asked me maybe 2 years ago what I was worst at, I would tell you that. But the more I work on it, the more I realized that you can create an entire character from a single room. You can find so much character and personality into the wear and tear of a single object that you've designed. Objects and environment design is so important, and it is a lesser part of the artist and especially the concept artist community that because so many artists out there, they want to get into character design, they want to get into creature design, they don't think about how much the world around them is shaped. The characters are like 5% of the world, and the environments and the props are the remaining 95%. If I could have any skill, it would be the ability to look at my own work objectively the way that I look at other people's work. So every artist out there will always ask for someone else to look at their piece right before it's finished and say, hey, what do you think about this? Tell me what you see. If I had that ability to look at my own work, then I would succeed so much faster and get better so much faster than I currently am. I like my openness to help other people. I always create a list of helpful things, both for myself and for other people. And I like to make these comprehensive artist lists for handing off to other people who I find need it most. I really want to be able to help other artists in the industry to do what I did, and I'm still finding my own path. And for those younger artists out there, I want to be not a guiding light, but somebody who they know can help them, because we've all gone through the same thing. I had somebody who helped me out, and I want to pass the baton down to the rest, to the next people. This is Vicky, also known as CrowBirdArt, and you've been watching Creators That Inspire Us. To all the young artists out there, good luck, and I'm here if you need me. If you ever need to reach me on any social media, you can find me on Twitter /CrowBirdArt, or if you want to take a look at my portfolio, it's on my ArtStation /CrowBirdArt, all one word. See you later, and good luck to all those young artists out there.